there's a table over
Yes.
here that's going to require
Hi, Mark.
signatures before everybody leaves.
The red dot, is what we're doing?
I didn't think you were on vacation.
No.
Now we're on live.
Perfect. I will open up the town meeting, town council meeting for August 11th. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pardon, sir. In fact, the red dot came on, so you just missed the pledge, nothing more, okay? All right, Twyler's to you. My stall tactics aren't that good.
Roll call is Councilor Albert.
Here.
Councilor Kobe.
Here.
Councilor Ganong.
Here.
Councilor La Rochelle.
Here.
Councilor Ward.
Here.
Councilor Lunt.
Here.
And Councilor Fellows.
Here.
Next, Twyler.
Good news and recognition.
Anybody got anything they wish to share tonight? Seeing and hearing nothing. Let me check email real quick. Still nothing there. Next item, Twyla.
There are no public hearings. Audience participation and response for agenda items would be next. At this time, those in the audience who wish to speak may enter the room and approach the lectern, one individual at a time, to address items or issues that are on the agenda. And seeing none, those listening from Town Hall live video streaming are now invited to send written comments by emailing award@lisbonme.org once the public hearing I guess at this time, Councilor Ward will review his emails to see if we have any audience participation.
I got nothing at this time, but what I would offer is that anything that comes in through the course of the meeting, we will keep that liberal like we've done in meetings past, just to give people that opportunity. Anybody else wishing to speak before the council? None. Next item, Twyla.
Is the consent agenda. The consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion unless a councilor requests an item be removed for immediate discussion. Any councilor wishing to remove an item may do so now. Seeing none. Order 2020-143 to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants for $372,586.90. The municipal payroll warrants for $333,577.02. School accounts payable warrants for $77,164.58. The school payroll warrants for $276,624.84. The minutes of July 21, 2020. And to reschedule the public hearing for the facade grant to September 1, 2020, to set a public hearing for the referendum question 1 bond order for additional $140,000 for the MDOT Main Street project on September 1, 2020, and to cast a ballot for the slate of candidates for MMA's vice president and executive committee members. There are no contests, and a poll permit for CMP located on the corner of School and Main Street.
Take a motion
Make that motion?
for discussion, if we could, please.
I'll second it.
The one point that I would actually have for discussion is we have a local boy that's actually on that ballot. If anybody caught the name, Jim Bennett is actually running for the vice president of MMA, so I would applaud his efforts towards that and definitely feel that our vote would be heard. All in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Next item, Twyla.
Under Council Orders, Resolutions, and Ordinances, Ordinance 2020-144 to repeal existing emergency ordinance to promote physical distancing and business operations in village areas.
So we're asking you tonight to repeal can you hear me all right?
Yep.
To repeal the existing ordinance, and then the next agenda item is going to replace it with a new title called Emergency Ordinance to Promote Public Health and Safety instead of physical distancing. And the difference on this ordinance is the title change, and then under the temporary emergency ordinance number 5, or number 4 actually, we wanted to add E to allow other applicants desiring to offer food for sale during a special event as determined by the town manager and may apply for a temporary permit authorizing food service and outdoor dining on closed streets or parking spaces in the village areas during the special event. And then under F, we added food service. We have a couple of events coming up and the current ordinance wouldn't allow food sales, and we have a farmer's market that we want to have down there. So we needed to tweak this a little bit, and this will go for 90 days after tonight, which will take us through the rest of the season, and then during the winter, we can work on maybe a permanent ordinance. But we would, during special events, we want to allow food down there.
Perfect. Twyla, do we need to take them separately?
Roll call vote and take them separately, please.
Make a
Okay.
motion.
I need a second
need
for
a
that
motion?
for the repeal.
Okay.
I have a first, second, I heard here. Roll call, please.
Counselor Albert?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Ganong?
Yes.
Counselor Kobe?
Yes.
Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
We have 7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
I need a motion for the second to adopt the new emergency ordinance for 2020-145.
I'll make the
So
mo-
I got the
Second.
first and I got the second. Any discussion? Roll call, Twyla.
Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
Counselor Kobe?
Yes.
Counselor Ganong?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
And Counselor Albert.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Next item, Twyla?
Before we go on to the next
Sure.
item, can Brett come in and just explain about the grant that we got awarded today?
Absolutely.
Right, Brett?
Hey, everybody. I'm Brett Richardson, the Economic and Community Development Director. And just a quick update, the state DHHS put out a second round of the COVID Municipal Awareness Campaign funding. The first round funded our Main Street work with the assets that we have down there in terms of traffic barriers, tents, to make it a safe place. We were awarded another $15,207. We put an application for just over 21, so they allocated a percentage to us along with other communities. So we've got some more resources to play with. One of the big ticket items that probably is the highest and best use for this funding is to replace the sign out front. We can put messaging out there around COVID-19. It's a more dynamic opportunity to get messaging out there, easier to manage. And currently that sign is a little dated. It's slow. It's inefficient to manage. It requires frequent service calls to update and keep up to speed. And the service is getting slower and not as responsive as it gets older. I think the vendor is not feeling the responsibility to upkeep as the parts get older. So there's really, I think, soon we'll be left to our own devices to manage that sign, and it could cause a problem. So we have an opportunity to fix that. It'd be a long-term asset. In the short term, it would allow us to get that messaging out there around COVID, as well as other opportunities in town. So we just received word today about that award, but that's, I think, the direction that we would like to go. Great news.
Is this the only item for you tonight, or are you looking to disappear? Because I have another question, if that's the case.
Sure.
And I want to afford you the opportunity to maybe give us an update on events of anything that we may have not heard or seen down to Moxie Plaza.
Sure.
Listening, Dot's listening, so they're your biggest fans. Make them eat about.
Excellent. So I know Councilor Albert's done a great job getting music down there on the weekends, and it's been a great community space. This past Sunday, we got the community out and painted the street there, and local artists put a pattern down. We had kids and families come out and paint it with temporary paint, so that'll wash away probably within a month or so. But we have some paint left over. I think it was a good outcome. I think people had a lot of fun. I think it got people thinking about that space in a new way. So we've got paint, opportunity to do that again in Moxie Plaza, or maybe go down the road to Village Street area and do something like that down there. We've got a farmer's market coming in on September 6th, I believe, which is the Sunday of the Labor Day weekend. Kina of Little Ridge Farm has done a great job. I think she's got 6 vendors lined up. So we'll be promoting that in the Lewiston Sun Journal, which is a great outcome. I think it'll get more folks down there using it as well. In between, we have a meeting, a community visioning process for the Warumbo parcel that we've talked about, relative to that Northern Border Regional Commission grant application, and the LDC has been working on pretty hard prior to my arrival. So that's, now that we have a space that we can meet socially distant as a community, that'll be taking place on Monday, August 24th at 6:30. Prior to that, we'll have a ribbon cutting for Delightful Heights, the new business on Main Street. So we'll kick that off with the ribbon cutting at 6. We'll have some food from Grazi to Go, Sweet Cakes, and some other folks. A little social period there from 6 to 6:30, and then we'll get into the visioning process for Warumbo, which will be some presentations. We'll do a nice site walk to get the community oriented to what the opportunities are, and then come back and have a facilitated conversation around what folks would like to see down there. So those are a couple of things that are coming. There's still ongoing work to put more activities in there. There's been some conversation about a Positive Change Lisbon annual meeting combined with the entrepreneurship initiative that we rolled out with the funding from the Maine Community Foundation. So I think it's really developing into a space, particularly on Sundays and Monday nights when the restaurants aren't serving. It's a real asset, and folks can use it. And we'll continue to push that out. We'd love to see more folks. So if anybody's listening that has a good idea, whether it's a community organization that would like to have an event for their folks, if it's a fundraiser, if it's somebody who'd like to put a table out, even when the restaurants are serving on Saturday night, and get their message out to the community about what they're working on, how the community can support them to fulfill their mission. That's really the mission there. So I encourage folks to reach out to me. My number is 353-3000, extension 122, or my email is brichardson@lisbonme.org. Love to help you put something together down there at Moxie Plaza.
Second restaurant opening up and everything, the coordinated effort, seeing it firsthand Friday night, looked like it was going well. Is that the feedback you're gathering?
Yeah, I think so. I think, we had conversations prior to Flux opening back up, and I think everybody knew it was a matter of time, and so the plans were made to accommodate that when it happened. And I think it's great news. It's exciting to see them back operating and folks enjoying it, and I think it'll be smooth. And I know they have some tables inside as well, so hopefully this dovetails into a strong winter season as well. We'll see how it goes, but I think they've got tables inside too.
From what I could tell that evening, it looked like they were off to a pretty quick start on Friday, and they had brisk service all through the evening. So great. That was great. Great to see them up and running again.
Definitely.
Tables, the fact that is the additional tables actually still coming, and is there a timeline on that, Brett?
We had a little challenge with a vendor who had a family emergency and wasn't able to fulfill. In the interim, Mark Stevens and Parks and Rec dropped off 6 new tables from the area parks, and then we've got 2 additional smaller tables coming in later this week. So we had hoped to bring in 10 prior to the last week with the vendor. We've since brought in 6 from Parks and Rec, 2 more are coming. So I think we're going to be pretty close to capacity down there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work.
Thanks, guys.
Fly, be free. Next item, Twyla.
Order 2020-146, the Rirumbo Mill Site Fencing Bid Award.
So I ended up sending out the bid specs 3 times. The first 2 times I didn't get anybody to bid on them. Finally, the third time is a charm, and I did get 1 bidder for it. It's what it is a commercial grade, 6-foot, all black vinyl chair link fence to go down at Warumbo, down by where the hydro plant needs, where that old fence came down and we put the new one up. It's going to look really nice when it goes up, and then Randy's going to do a little bit of landscaping around there afterwards. So
How many feet for the listening dot? Again?
it's going to be 6 feet high. I
remember it's like 600 or 800 feet
Yeah, it's
with
a
the
lot of
fencing.
fencing.
It was a lot of
Yeah.
fencing along the riverside. That's what I understood.
Yeah, it's not even, I see it listed here in the actual 600 feet, yes.
Chain link.
Well,
Chain link, yep,
yeah, the vinyl.
all
Mayor,
black.
Please go.
You had mentioned vinyl. What part of the fencing is vinyl, I guess? I'm
I
sure
think it's going
Randy
to be
looked
the,
at this.
isn't it the chain link part that's vinyl usually?
Coated.
I don't know.
But Randy looked at the specs. He was all set with the specs. I mean, that
Yeah.
is Randy's
He put those
previous
specs
line of work.
together.
So.
Yeah.
And the only question I had is there's still a length from where Randy did the dismantling to where, so to speak, the entrance is. That actually is still some old fencing that's up. Do you know if that's planning on coming down, and new fencing that's going to go the
Are
entire
you talking
length?
about the fence up close to the road, to 196?
No, actually, if you, it's on the same riverfront, basically where they're
Yeah, I
There's
don't
a short,
know the
there's a
answer
short
to that.
section that if you go by, you see it's all kind of growing up
Yeah.
still around that fencing. I'm just curious if that was coming down, and new fencing, it would be nice if new fencing went all the way out to the edge, so there wasn't any old fencing left in
Right.
between, but.
I will ask
You
him
don't have-
tomorrow and send you
don't
out
have
an email.
$15,000 worth of new fence, then, two
Yeah.
to four lengths of old fence, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, it's, if you think about where you drive in the driveway, this fencing's hooked to kind of like that half gate that's still there. You know what I mean? So I just want to make sure that we were actually just getting it all complete as much as we could initially.
So if that is not part of the bid, you still want that done? I mean, we can always do an addendum
Added
to
for
it.
the additional sections.
Right.
The fact is
Yep.
you already got a pricing per, so it would be just adding to the
Is it
additional.
ours? That's what I'm wondering. Is
The-
that section of fencing or is
I
that
don't know.
the
That
hydro?
we'll have to
There-
check
there-
and see.
Yeah.
There is actually, and that's something for Randy, I think, probably to hook up with Brian from
Yep.
down the hydro and look at, because there is a small section that has a gate to where they go down to their dock for the, so you can actually pull out your canoes and stuff. But there's still kind of an ugly piece of fence sitting there. So if not, maybe we can work with them to actually,
Well, maybe we can convince him if it isn't, maybe get Randy talking to him, and
Yeah.
if there isn't a big deal, he'll say, just, we'll roll it into our bid, just, this is what it's gonna cost us to throw those in. While we're doing it, you guys want in on this right now,
Yeah.
so maybe they'll jump in on
Yeah,
that way.
we'll work with them and see what we can come up with.
and maybe you can, and maybe it's already part of it and he just has to
It
pull
may
it down.
be,
I
I
don't
don't
really know,
know.
but
I know Randy talked about it. I just don't remember what he said.
yeah, because that fence really doesn't, that gate really doesn't play a role anymore because it doesn't stop anything. So
Right.
Randy might
The
know.
listening dot in the corner that I know is actually concerned on the topic, the fact is this is coming from the TIF funds that are designated for infrastructure accordingly, and something that's actually been discussed for the development, like the VRAP on the property, to actually improve its marketability and safety at the same time.
safety being the highlight right now.
Safety is the highlight with that open points to the river, correct?
Would you like a motion?
I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
I got second right there. All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next.
Order 2020-147, the parking lease at 5 Main Street.
So this is a parking lease that I worked with the owner of 5 Main Street so that we would have access to 7 of the 8 parking spaces. He's had a concern because people are parking there because there's just no parking downtown, and he didn't want to have the liability, so we put together this parking lease that we both agreed to. And we'll have use of it, and then during Moxie Festival, we'll have use of that 8 spot like we normally do. But for the rest of the year, we'll have the access to those 5 parking spaces without any conditions.
Any questions of the manager?
Just one. By entering an agreement, are we required to maintain and/or clear and all that as part of the agreement?
We would have to.
Yep.
But there's just, I don't think there's much, we already plow it.
I'd
in
say
the
we already-
I
wintertime
know that we
anyway.
have that section of area, and this is more about just
Yep.
getting it transparency out there,
Yep.
what we're saying, we're entering into,
Yep.
and I think it's great that this tenant, this property owner is willing to share these spaces at the time we're trying to make these things happen. So, but I also want to be known that we will be maintaining that during this
Right.
time as well. Perfect, thank
I'll
you.
make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
I got second right there, Mr. Ganong. All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next.
Order 2020-148, the Lisbon Falls Fire Station Roof Replacement Bid Award.
Want to come in, Nate? So again, I sent out bids back to quite a few roofers, commercial roofers in the business, and we received one bid from Restorations Home Remodeling. His bid met all the bid specs for $42,500. We currently in our budget have $50,000 set aside for this. In my recommendation, I recommended, because this is an allowable expense under the Kelly Park TIF, because it's a replacement, it's not maintenance. And because of some of the issues that we've encountered during July and the first part of August in this building, I wanted to throw it out there to see if you wanted to designate it from that fund so that we keep $50,000 for any other building improvements. Either way is fine, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
I'll make a motion for discussion.
I'll second.
Got the first and second. Go ahead, Don.
I understand both sides of the situation, I think, here, and that it is a budgeted item, and we indicated that we wanted everything in the budget to be, that was approved to be in the budget, not outside the budget. However, I also see that if the contingency comes up that we are really short on funds and have to pay for this roof out of the budgeted money, we then won't be able to pay for it out of TIF money. So I'm thinking that if it's possible to contingency pay it out of the budget as planned and redesignate it from TIF money if that came push come to shove later down the road. I don't know if that's possible.
That's an option that you can do. We'll
Yeah.
take it out of the budget like we have it budgeted, and then if for some, I mean, you've got two ways you could do it. Just take it out of the budget, and if we fall short in our building fund because of these unexpected issues that we're facing, you can always designate from undesignated fund balance also
Right.
to pay for it. So,
Right.
but the TIF funds from Kelly Park would cover something like this.
Go ahead, I don't want to monopolize, but to that counterpoint, the fact that I am of the mindset that a repair that we budgeted shouldn't be going against the TIF funds that was intended to pay for infrastructure. Infrastructure, I look for something that's more than a maintenance kind of item if we can do so. I would rather see something of that value to have permanent benefit that we could take care of from operating funds. I believe, what I'm hearing in this, no matter which way we play this, nobody is in disagreement that the roof needs to be prepared because it's one of the ones that was actually identified right out of the gate. There's nothing wrong with the bid. We got the bid.
Yep.
Boom. I just believe that it's best to be able to do the operations. The one other point that I'm asking of Diane to give her the chance for the dot in the corner is, how is best to be able to phrase it? Are the funds for the coming year frozen with the budget? I know we talked about that, and what contingencies are you putting in place
Yeah,
to be able to?
we are. We're not spending anything unless it's absolutely necessary. There are things that we have to do. We need to do this because it's leaking.
Right.
But, yeah,
Right,
we're
no,
not doing
but
anything.
the list of what you actually provided us, which was the sprinkler
Yep.
work here, what,
Yep.
Beaver Park well, what was the issue?
It went dry. It had something to do with when they drilled it last year and they didn't cap off something to the old well, and for some reason, if some odd thing happened, all the water went into the old well and it went dry. So we had to, Mark can explain it better.
So they fixed that to be able to put it,
Yeah,
okay, right.
something didn't happen.
So
when
the
they
long
drilled it.
story short is there's functioning water again at the Beaver
There
Park
is,
is what
there
it's,
is, but
that's
that
what
was
I needed to
another
hear.
unexpected. And then the sprinkler system here in the building.
And the generator.
Nate, you can explain what happened on the sprinkler system, and then the generator is the other issue.
So at 3 o'clock in the morning one morning, the fire alarm system went off because the sprinkler system pump kicked in. There was a leak on the dry side of the sprinkler system, meaning the parts of the building that are protected by a sprinkler that's unheated is dry. Sprung a leak, leaked out the air, causing the sprinkler system to flood. And when that flooded, it found leaks in a few places in the system. One was over the PD Sally port, which was the original part we found. And then right outside the public bathrooms here, we noticed standing on the tiles where the pipe was leaking there as well. It ended up being kind of a blessing in disguise because it was leaking, and we would have burnt out the air compressor, which I think we already have anyway. But it found some leaks in the system that had to be repaired.
Perfect. Generator, give it a recap, because I know I hit you up today after the storm. I saw you coming in the building, so.
So during the tropical depression storm, whatever you want to call it, came through, we, as everybody knows, we lost power in town. When we lost power on this part of town, the generator here at the town office did not start, which meant that for about 20 minutes, the entire complex had no power, including dispatch. No radios, no computers, no lights, no anything. The poor dispatcher was in there with a handheld radio, the light on a cell phone, and a notepad, trying to do his job. Sergeant St. Pierre and I actually went out and was trying to deal with the generator, and we, with the help from town mechanic, we actually had to jump start the generator. Battery wasn't kicking it over. So unsure what the exact problem is. I think sometime this week they're coming in to assess the issue with the generator. But that being said, it didn't do the auto start like it should have when the power failed.
May I ask a question on that?
Please.
Do we actually have a contract on that generator to do a monthly, does it do a monthly exercise and stuff right now? I mean, do we actually have any preventive maintenance program on that generator?
I honestly don't know. The last of my knowledge, that generator is set up to do a weekly run on Sundays, and well, unfortunately.
But that was done by staff, right? So
No, it was auto start.
auto start. Okay.
Auto start, self-check.
Okay.
Fire stations do the same thing. They start weekly, do a run.
But typically, I mean, someone will get a report if it doesn't start. I mean,
Well,
if
what
you
happens is that dispatch gets an alarm, but I'm not sure what's going on in there somewhere. I think the issue isn't on the mechanical motor side. I think it's on the electrical side.
But still,
something
it'd
there
be still underneath that same preventive maintenance on that. It would be nice, because I know we actually,
should have one
there's a
on
lot
there.
of questions we had when we did the high school, making sure that was actually on
That's
preventive maintenance.
Agreement, yeah.
And if not, we may want to just make sure, because
Yep.
unfortunately, next time, we'd hate to actually not have it actually work the way it should be, right? So,
Right.
But thankfully, we didn't get any emergency calls in that time frame that we know of.
We still had a dispatcher in the dark for 20 minutes
Yeah.
working by
We
candlelight.
actually did have a few calls come in, but
Right.
luckily he was able to handle them because
Yeah.
they're low priority calls.
So I think that what we can learn from this is that even though we have a fail-safe redundancy in the form of a
Testing it.
generator, I think that we can develop a maintenance schedule that's more less about auto start and more about hands-on, somebody putting hands, eyes, and understanding, so we can be ahead of the curve. And then the other side of that too is maybe even having a fail-safe for the fail-safe that looks like something, so that we're not going by cell phone light and others. The small, whatever that might look like, as if all else fails, grab this kit and it'll give you some light and some stuff that you need.
Standard contract for a generator usually calls for once a year maintenance. Change the oil, the filter, adjust the valves, all that stuff. Check the battery circuits and see if they're working. So that tells me that we haven't had that because the battery apparently wasn't checked or is not charging. So
Right. And if there was a protocol on a certain day associated with the week, why is that not being initiated? If
Exactly.
it's so that should be part of this visit.
I think you'll find that, like the new generator at the high school, we're in a new world today with actually a lot of
Yeah.
wireless, and so the people that are maintaining actually know if a generator is not actually coming online from their location, they get notified.
Right.
I mean, some of the older equipment, it's just, they only know the day that it doesn't work, that it's not working, which with typical house isn't a problem, but for our emergency services, it would be nice to know that it's going to fire up.
I'm fortunate enough to have one at home, and if the thing doesn't fire off, when the power goes out, I get a smartphone alert right away. So it's beneficial that we have an alarm system that works and has a good backup, and it seems like the dispatch should have had it. Maybe they didn't, but they should have had it.
Maybe we can just get an update. I mean, not that it really makes a difference to us, just how old that generator is and if it's something that needs to be. It seems so we're in a mode right now with changing generators over town with the solid waste, and maybe it's actually something to be looked at for our new capital plan. If it isn't,
Where does it lie on?
where's it
I was going to ask
coming?
somebody at CIP where that lives.
I
right
do
now,
believe
if
the
it lives there.
generator here is the original to the building. It was built in 2000.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we might be closing in on that final life cycle thing that people
And
talk
the
about.
thought
now
I,
and again.
I don't know how old the one on Public Works is, but the ones at the fire stations have been around longer than I have.
So building maintenance, and forgive me if I'm wrong on this, I can't remember, does that fall under the code enforcement office? Okay, I'm just wondering if maybe we get.
Actually, it falls under building maintenance. His that position's duties also includes the buildings.
Right,
Yeah.
good, so thank you for clarifying. It falls on the person who wears many hats here.
Yes, that's why I wanted to say it that way.
Yeah, understood. So I'm sure that he could probably give us an update of where that lives on any sort of CIP. So when we get a chance to demonstrate.
Yeah, I don't know that it's even on the CIP.
I know it's not.
I don't think it is.
But should
So
it
we-
be?
it
That's
needs to
always
be
the
on
question
there.
we
It
go
needs to
back
be
with
on
is-
there. Yeah.
Our CIP reads like a purchasing plan for what we're going to buy for equipment, but not anything associated with the buildings other than that short window.
I know
the
Public
current
Works
year.
needs to get a new one as well, so I just
Sure.
made a note to make sure we put the
It would seem to me
generators on.
It would seem to me that in addition to a generator, a third fail-safe system like a battery backup for essentials should be in the system somewhere too. I don't know.
Yeah,
if it's in the
that's
plan.
usually standard when you bought the generator.
Yeah.
Communication of some type that if it's a handheld radio, that is the fail-safe, so that there's communication from dispatch to all emergency services. If there's some way to understand that, if everything breaks down tomorrow and all we have to go, we have the appropriate number of handhelds charged, ready to rock and roll at any point in time, and across all the emergency, that sort of simple stuff. But I'm sure that's something you guys can figure that out. You're pretty good at what you do.
I don't want to speak for Mark Hayden, his department, but I do believe they do have a procedure in place for failures. That if that was going to last any longer than what it was, I believe it involves moving the dispatcher out of there into like a cruiser or something like that. The phone lines automatically transfer to county, things like that. So
There's contingency plans.
Yeah, that's good. I'd be just curious to see if we do have someone look at the generator to give us just a better idea of what the lifespan is, and if we're starting to just see the 20-year breakdowns of a system that we're going to put more in than what it's worth. You mean so? I'm not sure how big that generator is. I don't even know how it runs, if it's propane or
that's
diesel.
natural gas.
Natural gas.
Could we lay our hands on a portable if we needed to? And how quickly could they have it here to operate our building? Those sort of things, thinking of that.
I think that might involve some electrical work because you need a large enough, that generator powers the entire compound.
Okay, so it's a little
Entire
bit.
building, the parking lot
At best,
lights,
you'd get a
everything.
portable from EMA, and you'd be at the whim of everybody else at that event.
No,
Right.
as long as it's on the radar, I think that's all that matters, right?
That's right. Yeah, I want to circle back around if I can to the roof, since that's what we're here for. If nobody minds. I just had a quick question about not so much the roof, but I want to float something that's going to be very unpopular to start, but I'm doing it anyway. We're putting money into a fire station that, again, is aging, has been aging for a long time. We did some work on the Lisbon Fire Station and on the floors there not too long back, and we continue to pump money into buildings that are well beyond their natural life cycle here. I think it doesn't need to happen now. Obviously, I'm not talking about in this current climate, but I think we really have to start to assess what we need to do as a town, where we want to move. We want to continue to pump funds into buildings that are well beyond their life cycle and use, and consider looking at somewhere down the line, how do we merge these two places and save tons of money in building maintenance and resources used. So I know it's probably not very popular. I know the guys are fiercely loyal to their houses, and I can appreciate that. But it's not going to happen this year, obviously, or next year, or anytime in the very near future with what we have going on. So I think as a council, we should really consider that when we think of going into next year's budget and talking about what would a planning phase look like. It's food for thought.
If I may just add to that,
Please.
Mr. Chair, and again, my same thought when we looked at this is the idea of, maintaining multiple buildings. I know with this past budget, there was a line item for the idea of that, and we
Yeah.
actually kind of moved it away. But I would like to see, instead of actually having a third-party assessment, two things that play a role. I'd like to see the department itself do an assessment of what would and what wouldn't work. Then I would like to see if we do bring in the finance committee to actually have that be one of their things they look at, is the financial benefits of actually condensing two of what we're spending versus what a new one would be. I think it'd be a great,
It's like the solid waste.
exactly. I
discussion.
think it'd be a great opportunity for a finance committee to look at the logistics of financially of it and actually give us an idea where that would be. So
Projected expenses from last 10 years and with a projected going forward for the next 10, and then comparing that versus to what it may cost to put a new building, and then the savings from reduced maintenance.
we have all the data. It's just the idea of having people compile it and
something with it
actually
to make a
and see where it would be.
recommendation.
So,
Right.
do we need a motion for the roof?
Yeah, I need the motion for the roof, but we're still discussing both sides. I will reiterate that I am not in favor associated with using TIF funds. I'd like to have it be something a little more permanently placed. I would actually, I know that there are specific things that are propping up, that are coming up, that are unforeseen, and I think they're better placed as fund balance items, and they're going to come up. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask, what's the current balance in the TIF fund right now? Do we know, Diane?
I think it's 170-something thousand.
Okay. And how much do we put in every year into the TIF?
It's about 100,000.
About 100,000. Okay.
Mayor Chair?
Please.
Oh, no, that's the Kelly Park TIF. No, it's not, I'm sorry. There's 97,000 in there, so we put in Oh, my goodness.
right around
Probably
that
about
figure.
50,000
50,
a year.
yeah, because 20 years, 50 sounds
Yeah.
right.
And I also would actually like to
97.
keep the TIF funds for possibly something else, but, I mean, I am not out of the loop of the idea of playing this either way, whether or not we actually take it out of the budgeted amount and then actually bring in TIF later on, or use the TIF, but actually, if we don't use the budgeted amount, actually refund the TIF. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it ought to come out of the budget amount that we applied.
Right.
But, I mean, it's always nice to have the option of having a secondary.
Yeah,
Option,
take
so.
it out of the budgeted amount, and if we have to deal with it later on, we can. We'll have
Can we-
options.
Can we float it this way, Diane, for general discussion, the fact that the specific unidentified items that we don't know that are currently out there for cost,
Yep.
give us an idea on that at the halfway year
Yep,
and where
I
we're
can do
at
that.
for paying for those from operating? Because I know you're already taking steps to actually have everybody check with you before expenses. I know that's been the mantra for both us and the school to get through this coming year. But just give us an update at that point, and we can take action at a later date, is the way I would approach it.
Needs to be done regardless. just-
No, it was very clear in Dennis's presentation that this is one of the building items that needed to happen this year. And the fact is, so commitment to that, by all means, I would prefer to work within the existing budget.
So you'll want to amend the motion, because my recommendation is to have it come out of TIF funds, so if you just want to amend it to have it come
Or
out
it
of
goes
the
as presented, and you just know my position associated with that, too. I can play it either way, because not every motion here has to be a 7-0. That's straight out of the mouth of Mr. Fillmore. We have a first, all right?
We do. Don Fellows? Yeah,
Do
Council
you
Fellows
want to
and
amend the
Council-
motion? If you're not in agreement, it goes as stands.
Do you want to remove, expend the funds from Kelly Park TIF reserve and add out of the budgeted amount?
I'll amend it to come from the regular budget amount.
And the second on that was,
Me.
are you in agreement with
I
it?
will agree with that.
Okay. Any other discussion before? All in favor as amended?
This would be the amendment,
Right,
7-0.
all in favor of the amendment?
Yep, and now all in favor of the main motion as amended? 7-0 as well?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Good
Next item.
discussion, so.
No, I appreciate bringing in the aspects of everything for your last Monday associated with that, and the listening dot in the corner above your head as well, too. Appreciate it, thank you. Next, Twyla.
All right. Ordinance 2020-149, question 1, the bond order for an additional $140,000 for the MDOT Main Street project. This is the first reading. It's a roll call vote is required.
I need a motion for discussion.
I'll make a motion.
I need a second for discussion.
Second.
Who wants to go first? I'm sure there's somebody sitting here.
Well, I mean, I think this is actually not a need, but I mean, not a want, but it's a need for us to actually move forward with the Main Street project. That is eventually going to happen. I mean, I think within our lifetime at some point. So basically what I've been told, not been told, but I can explain, this is over and above the initial amount that we approved because the scope of the project is expanded. And this is just our requirement to actually make this project happen. This needs to be added to the previous amount that was already voted on by the public. So this, once this actually gets approved by council, it will go on to the vote. And we just got to do a good job educating the public to make sure we get it, because if not, we'll have to figure out some other way of actually making this project happen.
Now, a question I have for you, Diane. The referendum item for the $140,000 has nothing to do with that actually being taxpayer additional funds raised.
No,
to-
I think both the 140 and the 430 that's already been approved for this project, I will have funds out of the Dingley TIF to pay for our 10% share.
That's where I wanted to live in that regard. And point for the listening dot in the corner is the fact that it's not cause and effect. The funds are already here. We're looking to not actually having to raise, but we're trying to meet the letter of our charter, which says anything above 250 has to go before the voters.
Correct.
That line was drawn with what the original estimate from the MDOT project, which are now finding our 10% cost, would be an additional $140,000 to cover that provision in our charter.
the referendum article is going to allow us to go to bond if we so
Correct.
choose. But we,
There should be no need.
no, just like on the fire truck, that we were able to go to bond on that, but we didn't have to.
Right.
And how do we go to, I mean, how do we write the bond question? Is it written in one standard way and that's it?
Yep.
Or is there any option to change it at all?
No, our bond council wrote it this way. This is the way we want it, the way it's written.
Okay, but to Diane's previous point, it's the fact is, it's an education part, because it is not asking for an additional 140,000 raised from taxation. It's the fact that we have it. It's trying to meet the letter of the charter that we are going to the voters for the expenditure for our 10%. It is above the $250,000 rule.
And who knows, when they go out to bid on the project, it may not come up to as much as they think it's going to at that time, so.
Or it could be more.
Was that muddy, Don?
Could be more, yeah, that's right. Could be more.
It's just that it's over the 250 in aggregate with the two
Yes,
together, yeah.
yes. And so
It's one project.
technically, your other vote was not enough to be able to do it, so you got to go back and get the additional funding. So
Even though the additional funding is under the 250 limit.
it wouldn't pass the straight face test for me, and I'd be the first one to be pissed.
I get it.
Keep going again.
Yeah.
The original bond question only allows us to spend up to the 430 on this project.
Okay, so it has a cap.
That's why.
Okay.
It has a cap.
And now we're going to add 140 more to that, and if it ends up being more than that, we're going to have to go to referendum again.
Can we, there's no potential for any wording to be able to get an upside for additional change orders to this for above that 140?
I don't believe so. We would
Can-
have to just increase that 140 to a level that you feel comfortable that would cover any additional. The thing about it is, we're not going to get billed all at once for this. It's going to take us 3 years.
But if
after
it
the
still doesn't
project.
pass at the point in aggregate, to Don's point, the fact is then we're having to go back a third time. So if there's an option there.
The only way you could do it is you
Was
would
to
have
increase
to
the limit?
increase that 140 to something that you feel is going to, like 200,000, and hope that that would
Take into
Placate.
to take an account for any other increases because of the bids.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Please.
So Diane, I think from your discussion that we had last time, this is actually just for the step one up to Houston Street.
That's correct.
So the project from Houston to the compact zone is still in the works. It's just going to be a second stage to this, correct?
Right. There's no funding for that right now.
I know,
so
but
that's gonna be a while.
did they actually give a rough idea what the engineering with what that will be as far as for that end?
They estimated it a few years ago, and we did get approval from the voters to spend up to a certain amount. So they would have to do some more work on that to get a new estimated amount. But there's no money right now for that project.
No, I guess my point was I mean, that,
We're going back anyways.
yeah, we're going to be going back anyways, but the idea of, do you know how much longer after this project, is it something they plan on doing right after? They didn't really say, huh?
There's no money. They took
Yeah.
whatever they had allotted for that project and threw it into this one, because this one was so underfunded at the state level.
Yeah.
Now, the current estimate, I'm confident, has a contingency line that's already built in for anything that we're talking, so I'm assuming that's already, the 140 should be adequate.
Yeah.
But
The
that's
problem
if they
is
get into something completely unforeseen and bid significantly higher, they have latitude that we as a community wouldn't.
and their bids lately that have been coming in like 40% more than what they projected, so a lot of their work's not
That-
getting done.
Of recent, in the last, through the building closures, that's changed? Because what
I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Has it changed now?
slightly. The fact is, well, I'll give you an example, and the testimonial comes from Steve Pila, who actually just bid from Glidden. In that regard, we opened it was at a pre-bid for paving, and the fact that they had 3 awards that for contracts of the state that the state never did the work, or isn't doing the work because of everything for funding and that type of stuff, of cash flow. So long story short, our contractors still trying to get contracts in place, and they're actively going at them at rates significantly lower than last season because they can at least maintain their workforce versus actually having to lose them to a competitor that does have work. So there is competitive pricing currently going on in our area.
Yeah, I mean, there was so many projects got overbid, none of them happened, so there's people looking for work. and such,
Yeah, and Glidden Paving is a perfect example of it. They haven't done work in Lisbon. We're fortunate that we got them this year because the fact is, they're a solid business partner in Lewiston. So the mobilization from Gorham is minimized because they're already here, and we're seeing the benefit associated with those kinds of arrangements. So should be more of the same from what I'm hearing of present because of all of the unforeseens coming for the next year. Yes, Mark.
Yep. When we had the virtual public hearing about this project, I was looking at the plans, and I was pretty disappointed to see that we're not putting back any trees in the downtown area. That's, it's going to be, completely bare through there. And I know if you look at this village end of town where we took out all the trees there, it looks a lot more bare and kind of barren through there. And so I was pretty disappointed to see that. And I asked the state about it, and they said that was the town's choice to not put back trees. And I don't agree with that decision. I think you lose a lot of visual appeal down there, even if you save a few bucks up front. I don't think it's worth it.
The reason we decided to do that was Randy and I decided that, is because the roots of those trees get into the sewer line, and we're spending a lot of money replacing the sewer line, so we didn't want to have that issue.
Okay,
Plus, it's hard to maneuver around those trees when we're doing the sidewalk plowing, but the main thing is the roots.
Yeah, I would have preferred that decision come to us at the council, Diane. I really think that's a decision that the council should have been involved in and not just made by you guys.
Well, I mean, if you want to change that decision, I can go back to the state.
Did you provide that feedback?
I did. I provided the feedback in the
You gave them the
that's
feedback.
when they told me back it was the town's decision. And
Okay.
If Chair, may I?
Please.
And just to go back, I mean, and I know there's many different entities to talk about this, but there has been this discussion in the LDC about some of the downtown treescape and the greenscape, and it had been decided at one point in time that unfortunately it's very difficult to plant the correct tree that's just going to stay small and look great and actually not do damage long term. That a lot of communities are going to different type of greenery, more so plant a style that's actually more easily managed. The downfall, if you look at School Street, the trees we have growing in the Village Street, I mean, for the first 4 or 5 years are actually nice size and adequate, but due to the idea of not having the ability to, how would I say it, control the growth, a lot of times, sometimes trees get cut up and reshaped and grow into the ground. And when we walked Village Street, that was one of the big concerns about that area, was it really ripped up the sidewalk and really did a lot of damage. So, I mean, this discussion hasn't just been short-term. I think it's been a long-term discussion about just our downtowns in general. What do we actually have to get the greenscape going, and the idea of what's long-term practical, as far as for anytime you take away trees, I totally agree with you, Mark. It takes away the downtown.
yeah, I mean, I think if you look at down this Lisbon Village, I think it looks, in many ways worse than it did before, once you've lost all those trees.
It's more
and
open.
foliage through there.
More open.
But I think one of the things we have to look at Village, it's the project is not completed yet. It's actually just going. I think
Right,
with
but I
the
don't
corner.
see any plans to put back trees there in our projects that I can see down there.
Yeah.
An observation to follow up on what Fern comes from Lewiston, the fact that the area immediately around Lewiston City Hall, both sides of the street, the trees that were actually removed are, forgive me, Richard, I don't remember the name of the maple, that it's an invasive tree. What was planted 25 years ago is actually now on the not able to purchase or put in list for the exact reasons that you're citing. Is it gets into the infrastructure, sidewalks, and actually wreaks havoc with the sewer and those kinds of things. So the best decision today still has a cost 20 years down the line, and we're seeing some of that for sure, especially with the Main Street 126 project, because that's the oldest in there, and the fact that I'm sure I'm not the only one in the room that's old enough to remember we replaced the sidewalks in two years apart too, for some of those kind of decisions as well too. So
Well, it would seem if we really don't want to penetrate the sidewalk with trees and have the sidewalks grow up and be bunched up and all that stuff that normally happens, that we ought to be able to find an alternative, maybe through the TIF and everything else to.
Greenery?
Some kind of
Either
planters of
greenery
large-
I was gonna say, we can
Or
find, we have plenty of.
decorative stuff of some
Something,
kind.
I'd like to have something
Planters
visual.
down.
Yeah.
Like,
Can you-
Larger planters with something you can
Yeah.
plant in there, keep it from getting into the.
Thank you.
That's
And
what
if
a
it's,
lot-
even if it's not a part of this project, that it's something that we actually commit in, is
The TIF funds are
hearing
something-
greenery is what's,
Because it's going to look pretty barren without those trees down there.
okay.
We discussed that too at that level is, when the time comes and those sidewalks are in, that we need to put an alternative in there, some type of planter that does have the greenery.
Yeah.
So we did discuss that.
Yeah, I just
I
think
think-
that's important to the look of that area down there.
There
and
are,
to leave it
there are
there.
some big planters available that you could move out for winter and stuff like that.
Just go down to Moxie Plaza right now. I
Well,
mean,
I was
there's
gonna say, I
a
think
huge,
they're
There's all kinds.
finding
You came
planners,
in.
and the great thing about that is it'll support the Public Works overall plan for thinking about winter maintenance and some of the biggest challenges that we had. And then infrastructure pieces, worrying about spending all this money for
Right.
improving infrastructure below, only to have it choked up by roots in 15
That was the
years.
main reason
Yeah.
why we didn't want to put those
Right.
back.
I trust that we have a lot of good folks. in
Mark,
the
if we
right
keep
seats here on the bus
sight-
to figure it out.
If we keep sight of greenery throughout this project, does that work to
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
point?
Mhm. As long as we make that a
Okay.
priority, that, doesn't
Okay.
end up looking like a concrete paradise.
Right.
I think we have to keep in mind too that not just down on Main Street, the whole area from the corner all the way up to School Street's gonna look much different, because I believe most of those big trees are gonna be
Right.
coming off the front lawns. So that whole area is gonna look substantially different, so.
Yeah, and most of North and Bibbers being reconstructed as well for, I mean, I walked that Sunday and I was explaining it to my wife, and you can clearly see the need why. Yeah. Okay, remind me, where were we,
I
Toilet?
think we gotta,
Do
We have a
we have the motion,
motion.
we have the second?
Yes, we do.
All in
To-
favor, if
no,
there's, if, the-
It's
oh,
a roll call.
thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Bennell, thank you. I miss Chris, I do. At times. I
Are
hope he's
you-
listening.
Are you all set? for
Yes,
roll
roll call.
All right. Counselor Albert,
Yes.
Counselor Fellows,
Yes.
Counselor Colby,
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle,
yes.
Counselor Ward,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
and Counselor Gannon.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Next.
Order 2020-150, the warrant for the November 3rd, 2020 annual municipal and referendum election. We also need your recommendation for the question 1 on the ballot. You have
I
a
believe
warrant.
the recommendation is we're putting this item on there?
And to recommend yes? Okay.
Yes. I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I got my first and I got my second. Any other discussion? All in, does that roll call or all in favor?
Just all in favor.
See what you did there, folks?
7-0.
Job challenge going over there?
A
Order
legal
passed.
degree is paying off in spades tonight, woman.
I like the extra help.
Okay.
Next
Next.
item is other business, council committee reports.
School, that was,
So I attended the meeting last night, and they had a workshop the week before, all about with rolling out a plan for what we're going to do as a community for heading back to school. And right now, the school committee at the following the CDC guidelines is opting in for the in-person learning. However, there are many parents with many different questions and concerns, and the school committee, school board, superintendent, all the folks involved with getting those answers together are doing their very best right now to do so. As you can imagine, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of concern. We all worry about our kids and our own health, so they're doing the same. And they're working hard, but it's not easy. But they're doing it. So right now, school has been pushed out, delayed to start until September the 8th. It's pushed out for another week. And that's where we're living right now. As things change, and guidelines may change, or the governor may get involved if things go the wrong way, then there'll be more to come. That's what I got on that.
any questions? I think that's the best thing. I've had several in the past week, and the fact is I am clearly the wrong person associated with that, so thank you for the recap for the listening dot. Planning.
At the last meeting of the planning board, they approved the Springworks expansion with some increased landscaping in the front make it look a little different than it does now. But it was approved. And they plan to start, they hope to start around September 1st. They're waiting on the DEP process.
Where, out of curiosity, is the landscaping lacking because everything's below the hill? So what am I missing?
In front, where the farm stand is and that sort of
Okay, so something to
Going to
break
the-
that up a little bit.
Yes, and they're going to pave all of the aprons that come out, which helps the street situation quite a bit.
Okay,
They're required to technically, but never have done, and the old house that's there, the original house that's there, never was paved, so they're going to do all that.
okay. Thank you. Anything else?
It should be a very nice project. It really adds a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Adds some extra jobs too, which are always good to have.
LDC.
Bunch of stuff coming up. Actually, there's a meeting coming up if in the near future. If you want to contact Brett to find out what the LDC meeting is, and he actually explained it a little bit tonight. There's another meeting coming up tomorrow night. Don Fellows is actually, with the Rumble project, is actually kind of breaking off little subcommittees to get different information. And actually, Mr. Fellows, Councilor Fellows, actually has been doing some homework on maybe some charging stations or solar information as far as for the lot. Trying to find out just the information ahead. So tomorrow night there is a informational meeting that Don's put together. It's actually be done at our office on outside or inside the open area for social distancing. And it's just more informational meeting, what's available and what potentially could go on the site. And then the following week we're having an LDC meeting where we're going to be doing a walk of the site and actually going over some possible layouts. So, Don, you want to add anything to that for tomorrow
I
night?
think the LDC meeting's tomorrow night, too. It follows the LDC meeting is tomorrow night at 6:30, following the special thing at 5:30. And I just want to say that that's about solar and EV, and it is really just a study to find out so that when we do the visioning process on the 24th, Monday, that Brett mentioned, that we're a little bit more educated on how to ask intelligent questions and what possibilities are and aren't.
Correct.
So
Yeah, I
that's-
was thinking about the visioning the following week. Sorry about that. Yep.
Conservation, what I would offer is that Richard has got a meeting set. It's for the 18th, 6 p.m., Moxie Plaza. So they are getting back to their task, trying to regroup on what their priority is going to be coming into the fall, but I should know more by the next meeting. Recreation.
Oh, sorry, napping over here. So continued, the summer program's continuing along. They had an America's Got Talent type. It was pretty cool, actually. They did that last week as their summer camp continues on. Also, just to point out that there is a slow roll-up to reopening the fitness center. I saw the email go out, and it'll be right now normal business hours, Monday through Friday, with the hope that we'll eventually get back to the point where it'll be business as usual, and no new members at this time while we continue to get through COVID, but we'll get back to a point where we can start adding people in again. So what I got for that?
Can I add something to that?
Please.
I talked to Mark today, Mark Stevens, and the school has reached out to him to provide some daycare to bridge the gap because of the delay in starting school this year. So we're working through the logistics of that to accommodate the school.
Great point. I didn't even think of that, and it did get brought up last night, so thank you.
County, the county commissioner's budget hearing is set for September 2nd at their normal business meeting, the 5:30 time frame. And the following week, Mark and I are back tapped in on Wednesday nights for the county budget. So they're actively working through the agenda right now for what their budget looks like that they'll be passing off to us the 1st of September. Library. Sorry, Mark.
Everything's
kinda
going
s- that was
smoothly at
kinda
the
soft,
library.
am
I don't really have anything new to report from the library. Everything's going well. They seem to have been doing a good job with their all the changes they made to accommodate the COVID-19 situation, and everything seems to be going well there.
I
Perfect.
can add something to that. We did just last week updated the 2 patrons' computers, the ones that the public uses. The other ones are so old, and they love it because it's going faster. They just love it. So we had originally had 3. We're down to 2 because of COVID-19 and the social distancing, and I don't plan on replacing that 3rd one. I think because of the speed of these 2 new ones, I don't think we're going to need that 3rd one. But we'll play it by ear. If we do, we'll replace it later on, but I don't think we're going to need to.
Water.
The water department had their regular meeting on the 5th, but they held it here. And they held it at 5 o'clock. And the major thing that came out of the meeting was they just approved an RFP and awarded it to Dirigo Engineering for a comprehensive systems facilities plan update. And the cost of that is $30,000, ratepayers, except that $15,000 of it will be reimbursed through the Maine Drinking Water Program, which is actually part of the CDC. I didn't know that, but anyway. And the second part, the reason they had the meeting here was because of the hearing at 6 o'clock on the rate increase, and absolutely nobody had a comment. So
Nobody had a comment or
nobody had anything to do with the hearing, and actually they waited and waited for calls to come in, all kinds of things. So the quarterly billing, which is likely to will go to the PUC shortly, is the first 500 cubic feet of water is $57, which is an 8% increase, or about $4 a quarter. The next 150,000 cubic feet is $3 a cubic feet, or up to 20% increase, which is really not. It's about $15 per quarter for the average person. Does that make any sense?
Yep.
I used to have one
They
thought.
broke it off at 500 cubic feet because there are some people in town that use very little water.
I just have one thought on that, is I realized that over these last few years with the many different challenges we've faced with replacing the infrastructure, and we've had to each time, in order to receive bond or grant funds, to support some of these, we've had to then align our rates to support being inside of certain guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's been a pretty aggressive rate increase because we hadn't done anything for so long. I say all this because I want to understand there's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel where this thing's going to level off eventually based on some of these things. I know this is not related to that, but it is in a way because of the maintenance component of it and what we're trying to do here.
Well, I take that back. Actually, there was somebody that commented during the hearing. It was me. And I asked when the last rate increase was, and that was just over 2 years ago. And I asked, where does that place us, this town, in regards to similar towns? Based on the state measure, which they use 1,200 cubic feet as a measure, our $78 per quarter, and the average for the state is 84. So
below
we're
the
right
state
in there.
average, though. Good. Thank you for bringing that out, because I think it's important that everybody gets an understanding of where that's at.
Town manager.
So we committed taxes on July 22nd. The mill rate stayed the same. It didn't go up and it didn't go down. Everybody should be receiving their tax bills now. We started getting stuff in the mail this week, so.
There was no change in valuations either, right?
No change in valuation, but there was a change in the homestead exemption. So that went up a little bit. So the average taxpayer that does have the homestead exemption should see a reduction in their tax bill, because that went up. It didn't go up the full 5,000 because we're not at the 100% valuation, so we're only at 93%, so it only went up 93% of the 5,000.
So, for clarification then, anybody that's actually seeing an increase this year has had an increase in their valuation either due to a recent purchase or work that's actually been done on the home that's actually catching up.
Exactly, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I know that there was been some recent discussion associated with the whole anarchy discussion and unbearable taxes. I just would like to have that point known, is that this year, recognizing that we had every intent to come in as flat, and
Yep.
we did.
And the values, the sales are going right through the roof. And because we're not at 100% this year, you probably most likely are going to look at another valuation increase next year so that we don't have to do a full revaluation.
That's good to know going
Yeah.
into next year for sure, because you're absolutely right, is the fact that people's Your asking price, and people are getting in excess of the asking
They
price
are.
because there's limited housing stock in general.
a lot higher than what we have assessed, so and
That
that's
has
what
a
the
direct impact
state
on what the
auditors
new
look
person
at.
will have paying taxes on that location.
I have a question.
Yes.
Has the reimbursement rate for homestead exemption changed?
Where we'll get more back. That's all calculated into the commitment.
Okay.
And then Pinewoods Road, that's coming along really good. I've only had probably I've had one complaint two complaints actually on dust. And then I've had somebody that called me and told me they really like what's going on and they like to see that things are being done the right way. So I think doing the whole reconstruction instead of just an overlay, people like that because the road's going to last a lot longer. And then the sewer line over on the Upland Road, the St. Laurent contract that you approved at the last meeting, they have asked us if they could start the work in the spring, and Mandy, Steve, and I had no problem with that. So we're not going to start that project right now. It's too late in the season, and they're going to get going first thing in the spring, and that's not an issue for us. I just wanted to let you know that. And then on the next agenda, we're going to have, we're going to ask to go out to bid for the Davis Street Pump Station project, and that's probably going to be another one that won't start until next year, but we're going to go out to bid for that as well. It's all part of that big $9 million project, so we have to spend the money within a certain time for USDA rural development, and the bulk of it is going to be spent on that Main Street project.
Mr. Chair, may I interrupt?
The other thing is the paving on the Pinewoods Road, that's scheduled to start sometime in October.
Yep.
With, and just a question, with the new bid policy and stuff we have, I mean, I know there's always deadlines written into the contract. Do we have to reassess the contract to change the date so St. Laurent can do that next year?
No, because it goes by when we sign the contract. We haven't signed anything.
Okay.
But it goes on no, we don't have to do anything
Okay.
with that.
I just didn't know because of the bid process and.
Yeah.
What was the completion date originally? Did we give one, or was it
I
spring?
don't know if it was a date or it's within so many days. I don't think it was an actual date.
Of the execution?
I think it's
Okay.
from the execution, it's so many days.
Okay.
But rural development had to agree to this as well, and they're all fine with waiting till spring.
I just knew our new policy had quite a bit of different language.
Well, it's
in
not
it, so.
that bid, it's not, there's a whole different set of bid specs for that project.
Okay.
And it has to go by USDA rural development's guidelines.
The only thing that-
I would have to look back at the actual contract. I mean, it's like two thick books to see exactly. I can get that information for you.
The only thing
Not
that
a
I would
big
think
deal,
that
I
might
just-
be out there would be paving escalators.
Yeah.
The difference between now and next spring. Those typically run in for that.
Which that's actually all calculated into that bid anyways, right? Or
Yeah, the paving escalators are
Yeah,
already in the
we
contract.
made it
to
clear
begin
that
with.
it can't increase anything if we
That-
wait till
then-
spring. Hopefully,
Gary's a solid player, and the
Yeah.
fact is, if he tells you he's going to honor his price, he's going to honor his price.
exactly.
which is fine, yeah.
Yeah, no, I firmly believe we hired the two right contractors for the bid pricing that we got, so we should not have any issues.
That's all I had.
May I ask one more
Please.
question? The, have we found out anything more about the Village Street sidewalks?
Yeah, we're working through that right now.
Working through it now, so there is going to be resolved.
Well, we're hoping the bond company's involved. And
Were they out there today, or was that paving? I thought they were on the sidewalk, that's why I was asking.
well, the state's doing some work because they're doing those tip downs. Did you notice that?
That's probably what they were doing. Okay, they were working the tip downs. That makes sense.
But I think we have been asked to let them test do a couple of borings in the concrete to get it tested. We're just waiting for an agreement on that.
So it's still in the
Because
works.
we made it clear, whatever they find out from those borings, whether there's something wrong with the cement or there isn't, we still expect it to get fixed, because it's not our fault.
What about in that area while we're up on Village? I know that the idea was to complete the Grazie's Park project as we got into August. Where are we at on that? far as moving
So
forward?
Randy's trying to get more than one quote on the irrigation, and he hasn't been able to. He's tried and tried and tried, so we're gonna go with the one quote that we have. It's about $1,600, so I gave him permission to go with that.
Okay.
Once that's done, then we can look at planting the trees, because we gotta wait till the irrigation goes in. And then we can put the kiosk up, and then I think the sign's ready to go up anytime. And then the fencing, we don't wanna do that until we know what's going on with the sidewalks.
When you
Because
say
the fence is
kiosks-
too close to the,
I'm sorry, do you mean gazebo thing there?
you know, the
There's
one
actually,
that the Cheryl Haggerty's Realty Group,
Yes.
it's an informational
what an
kiosk.
information kiosk.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Basically, hopefully it will state the, you know,
That gazebo thing, we haven't done anything with that yet.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I know you're talking about the kiosks now. It's gonna be on the other side by the parking area. I'm thinking about that. I'm visualizing now. That was the plan. No, I just wanted to understand that we're moving on that because I know
Yeah.
last year we had delayed it. This year we delayed it for the right reasons because it benefited the contractor who was doing the
Yeah.
work, but it also benefited us.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure, and I'm trying to make sure that we're staying on top of that because
We
I think
are.
it's important that our community members on Village Street side understand that we talk a lot about what's going on downtown in Lisbon Falls, but they're not forgotten up there, and we're doing everything we can right now to try to attract, make that a little bit more appealing for someone to come by and start to make those sort of investments.
We're gonna also paint out parking spaces on the new pavement as well. That's gonna get done. Well, Randy gets the paint out to do his other stuff.
I think we're all encouraged, but we've seen some movement with some realtors, so.
no, I'm all good.
Fencing, that would end up having to come back here for going out to bid. I would just float it for general conversation, is looking at what's already there and seeing some of the other plans that are in it. Is there still a need, and what's the benefit associated with that kind of expenditure closing in that space with a wrought iron fence? Just for what it's worth.
I would suggest if we do go forward with the fence, I know that the plan was for a 6-foot fence, but I would suggest maybe we bring that down to like a 4-foot fence, because 6 foot looks kind of like a jail, prison yard to me. I mean, I think 4 foot would keep kids safe in there while looking a little bit more aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
Just going back to the LDC discussion when we were looking at initially, the fence was going to serve a couple things. One is for the idea of being this busy intersection it is, if the family's in there with young kids or a ball or whatever, it's actually going to be a safety aspect. But also was hoping to keep the idea that kids just don't, not even kids, adults, don't just run bicycles through it. It will actually keep it so there's an entrance and exit to the park, and actually hopefully keep the ground safer and better maintained.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
for listening, Dot. That's kind of where I was going with that, Fern.
Yeah.
So do you want a 6-foot or a 4-foot?
I think 6 is actually, to Mark's point, is overkill.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think 4 feet would keep kids safe, would be enough. You can't really jump that unless you're a NBA player. You're not going to get over a
4
4-foot
foot.
fence. It would provide a safe space there, but it wouldn't look like some kind of prison yard like a 6-foot would.
Don?
Has anybody seen the drawings with that 6-foot fence?
It looks too high to me when I
The
look at it.
presentation the night of,
I
yes.
could see going down to 5 feet, but not 4 feet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there a 5? Let's meet in the middle.
There is a 5,
Let's just-
and 5-foot fence looks like it was meant to be a fence,
Okay.
but it isn't a castle, I know.
But you think, the way I look at it is it's gonna serve that purpose you talked about. Kids kick a ball, and it goes floating out into 196, although that light's there and slowing traffic down. If it's green, you get
Right.
5 or 6, 7 cars flying through there about 35, 40. Some big giant ball comes floating over the fence.
And there's still a gazebo?
Yes.
Where does that
Yeah.
stand in this? Is
I've
that,
not done anything with that yet.
Yeah.
so along with the fence, there would be a gazebo at a future date too?
Right. I just don't think it's practical right now to put the fence up.
No, I
We
don't disagree. It's not the priority for the coming year, but everything else
Right.
associated with that.
Well,
is-
and not to
once-
mention the gazebo, building materials are pretty scarce to find. I know my mom's trying to have a deck built right now, and she just,
Trex is impossible
she,
to pick
yeah,
up.
she hasn't even gotten her material, and she's 3 months out. I can't even get somebody to build a garage right now, so.
I think,
The, the self-appointed social media jockeys that are actually criticizing it at every turn, that's one of the recurring topics, is that this project is run out of funds, that we've done nothing on that corner, and it's completely untrue in that regard, is that there's a conscious decision, but realize that just like everything else in your personal life, that March took a pretty good hit for what the priority becomes and what our investment for our time has been.
Yep. And if I may, I know Brett's been pretty busy doing everything. He's actually been definitely pretty
Right.
strung out, but I mean, there's no reason that this fall, I don't see any of that. Actually, with the grass being matured and the paving parking being where it is, that there can't be some type of activities like we're discussing down in Moxie Plaza happening in the same location. I mean, the fence isn't pretty, but it's functional. You mean? So, I mean, the idea of parking there and actually a food truck, having a farmer's market in that location.
Yep.
I know right now that the grass is somewhat fresh, so you don't want to have a lot of people.
Yep.
But if we can actually get if we get the parking, we get the green space. So anything that happens down Moxie Plaza can happen up there. I guess is my point.
If we have to slow down because of some of the, for the obvious reasons on some of the projects, whether it's because of lack of materials and/or
Contractors.
just being smart about where we're going, I would make one suggestion. If we're going to go at a much slower pace, I think it's time to pull that temp fence down. It looks terrible.
Okay.
Just my take on that. The temporary fence around it, so the grass was there, and the temporary fence was to keep people off the grass, right? I think
While it was growing, yeah.
That's what the point of the wrought iron fence is to stop the traffic from bicycles riding over it and everything else. In the meantime, I think that fence should probably stay.
Yeah. I guess a little more
It's
discussion.
ugly, I know, but it's
All right,
functional.
so-
You could leave part of it, Dawn, maybe if you just left like the section along,
I
Village
understand what
Street,
you're
where the
saying. You
parking
don't have
lot, took
bicycles
out
all
the
through and
196.
things that,
Not to mention
block
cars.
bicycles, if you had, leave one side of the fence up and take down the side by 196.
I think a car
Bicycles kind of
car
through
jumps
there.
a curve, that fence is going to be ill suited to slow it down.
I mean, a
Mr.
couple of
Chair.
things, anything that we actually have, I mean, I think the sign going up, if that's actually something that can be
Right.
done, again, if it's a question of the sidewalks, just hopefully in the near future, that's why my ask was earlier, so we can get a time frame. I mean, if they can't give us a time frame on the sidewalk, I mean, at some point in time, we got to move forward and do what we need to do, whether we stagger the fence in a little bit more than we were planning just to actually make it. I don't know, it's just one of those things where I'd hate to see this get dragged out for a couple of years if we're getting into litigation on the sidewalk and not be able to fulfill what we want to do because of
More to come for sure. One of the things, fencing in general, I've had the same experience as Diane. I went out 3 times for our own fence issue, and it was not a small dollar figure. For me, it was a $250,000 capital item. And the fact that when I can't find a fencing company to be able to do it either, that they're busy and they're backlog. One of the other things, anything you order now has got a 12-week delay before you can even receive the materials to be able to have this discussion. That is a reality right now. Thank you, Diane. Next, Twyla.
Department head, written reports.
I took the liberty reaching out to our finance director and town manager today on the finance directors. I would like to try to do what we used to have with Lydia, with Kayla, to be able to give her more of an active voice instead of the actual financial statement reports, is give us a summary of where she's at. So I know we used to, Lydia was kind of tossed into the deep end of the pool with trial by fire. Kayla is a very capable person. The fact that you give us a recap of where we are on revenue and expenditures, update on the munis tax, give her the latitude to be able to give her a soundbite than just the pages, other than myself being the geek, looking at those financials, give you guys a little more depth associated with that. And it also affords her the opportunity to have a little bit of a voice presence here because she is a resource. Other than that, I got nothing. Anybody else?
I just had a comment. I was really happy to see the spreadsheets on the TIF stuff, and I'm getting a little bit more educated than I was. It's one thing to say we'll take it out of TIF money or we'll use this TIF money or whatever, but to see actually, again, some of it I've seen, but to be able to see what it is and what level it is and to have enough information to ask a question now, that's probably very useful.
I was getting tired of looking each TIF up to get the information, so I decided to do a summary on everything. And even when I was getting tired of it, I tell you. And then I also incorporated the dollar amount so I could keep track of what council's designated out of there and what we spent out of there. So I'll have a running total. But all of them are different, so
Yeah.
so I had to summarize every single one of them so we could know what we're gonna spend it on. But, and, I don't know if you noticed, there's a couple of them coming up within the next couple of years that are gonna go right off. We won't have the TIFs anymore, so.
I think it's particularly helpful
Yep.
to other, like the LDC, if we're looking at a project, or if the LDC is looking at a project or something and look for a source of money, you know what you're dealing with. And the source of money is either fundraising or grants or a TIF or something. So, yeah.
I just have one other thing I forgot to mention. We finally finished up with the tax module, and we did our first billing out of it this year, a couple of weeks ago, and I just have to commend Megan on how much work that she did on the tax project. You know, we couldn't have gotten it done without her. And she wears many hats in my office, and she really did an excellent job. She understands the taxes because she's certified just like I am, and she really did a great job. So we're going to get by September 15th, which is the due date of taxes, and after that I'm going to start scheduling the last module, which is the utility billing.
Perfect.
And that's probably going to take at least a year to get through, because that's going to be more comprehensive than the tax because of the just the nature of the utility billing part. And hopefully we'll work well with the current vendor for the information. And but anyway, it's going to take a while.
I stopped in last Friday and actually got a chance to talk with her a little bit about it, and she was glowing about how easy it went, smoothly it went with working with Venus, and that because of the new system, she's been able to work with and get a redundancy trained, so it's not only her, but she has somebody in the backup, and she's like, it was a lot smoother than I anticipated it was going to be.
Yeah.
So that's something that's been those are words we haven't heard uttered, especially in relation to some of this stuff. So it's nice to hear it.
You know, we had to completely build that whole system. It's not like they have a template. It had to be completely built, which is, that's hard. It's
Oh,
hard
for
to
sure.
do that.
Testament to you.
And because of COVID-19, nobody's coming on site now. It's all done remotely, so we have to do it via Zoom meetings, all the training and getting everything set up. So that's a little challenge too, not having somebody here in the building. But we made it through the tax liens, and we made it through, you know, we had some glitches, some things we got to figure out and fix, but for the most part, it's all done. So I'm not looking forward to the next version, but that's going to be a little difficult, but we'll get there eventually.
Fingers crossed. Come on, I have a little faith.
We are.
Next 12?
Appointments, Order 2020-151, the Cemetery Committee reappointment. It's a 3-year term. Lynette Carver is willing to accept that position.
I make the motion.
Need a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
7-0, order
Next.
passed.
Can we go back to council communications? Did you want to talk about the snowmobile club's request, Alan?
We're there now.
Oh, are we there
We're
now?
not going back.
Oh, you added it onto the agenda?
No.
Oh.
I think
We're
it's just
on-
the
Oh,
order.
You
I'm
jumped.
sorry.
You jumped. You're
I
good.
jumped.
You're good. No, I was with you. I got that right here. Do you guys have copies in front of you? The fact that I received an email and Diane did too after Friday, like last year. There's a request here for $8,500 from the snowmobile fund to be able to purchase a grooming equipment and trying to not hold up a vendor that's actually holding the equipment on behalf of the Pajupscot Snow Chiefs. For the listening dot in the corner, this is part of a snowmobile registration that's actually everybody that actually registers a snowmobile pays for, so it isn't something that's there. It's part of the user fee. We hold this fee as they periodically need funds for their existing items. So it's technically their funding that we would be authorizing. I need a motion and a second if you guys are in agreement.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
And I have a second. All in favor?
Just one question?
Yes, please.
Did, the price is actually pretty reasonable, so I assume this is a used piece of equipment?
I have no knowledge here other than what Steve sent us,
Right.
but I would assume as well too.
With a Polaris side-by-side with the track system, I mean, the track system is well over half what the price is that they're asking, so I would assume that it's
Used.
Yeah,
It's got to be.
which is fine for me as long as they're all,
They're good with, yeah.
yeah, as long
and
as they're
it's-
good with it, I'm good with it, but.
And that's, again, it's kind of like, it's a Gordon. I couldn't remember Gordon was the last time we came before us, right?
Correct.
Because he sat in the public and he hit it in the wrong point, and Chris directed him back to here. But anyways, I'm confident in the Curtis's ability to be able to come up for a reasonable offer for what they're looking for.
No, I'm all good with it. Yep. It seems like a very reasonable price for what they're getting. How's that?
Right. Okay, all in favor?
Vote
Motion.
7-0.
Thank you.
Order passed.
Thank you for reminding me, Diane.
Okay.
Next.
No, that was it. Audience participation for new items. At this time, those in the audience who wish to speak may enter the room. There is no one here. And those listening from Town Hall Live video streaming are now invited to send written comments, emailing award@lisbonme.org.
And again, I have nothing at this time. If we receive anything, I'll read it into the record if we're still here, but we're moving on. Next item.
Executive session, Order 2020-152, to go into executive session per 1 MRSA, Section 405, 6A, Personnel Matters.
Make the motion.
Nothing, we're coming back for a vote, right, before we, I need a second. I had the second right there with Mark, I believe. All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0. So we have some documents that you need to sign. Might want to do that while we're
Yep.
in between this and executive session.
Come on, Ms. Phillips. I'm doing well.